This is Morgan Hazelwood, back again with more writing tips and writerly musings.
As the new year kicks into full swing, I like to take a moment to look back at the goals that past Morgan thought she'd accomplish and laugh. Only this time, it has been 2 years since I last did one of these. So hang on tight while I talk about the good, the bad, and the utterly ridiculous. Welcome back to Morgan's Writing Tips and Writerly Musings with tips from the pros and, of course, my own writerly musings. I'm your host, Morgan Hazelwood, and today I'm here with my 2024 and 2025 retrospective. So let's talk about my writing goals from the last 2 years. Whenever I set goals, I do my best to focus on things I can actually control rather than, quote, get a 9-figure publishing and movie deal. Although I probably wouldn't say no if you offered me one. My goals are quote unquote smart. They are specific, measurable, achievable, results focused, and time bound. For 2024, my priorities were writing, querying, and revisions. But we all know how my 2024 ended up recovering from burnout. I only bothered with one goal in 2025: read fewer books. So, how did Morgan do? Let's gear up for the breakdown. For the sake of sanity, I'm going to pretend that my other 2024 goals carried to 2025. So, without further ado, here is my list ordered by assumed priority at the time. My 2024 and 2025 goals. Number one, writing. The plan was I wanted to finish my second space fantasy by June, write a 50K chunk of words towards a novel in November of 2024, and I hoped to draft at least one short story and 15 poems. The reality is I did not even look at that second space fantasy from pencils down on November 30th of 2023 until November 1st of 2025. It did not get done in 2024, but I did get 79,424 words written on my 2024 November project, currently known as Morgan's Urban Fantasy, aka the Vampire One, aka Twice Bitten, Thrice Shy. I did even draft a short story, and while I didn't hit 15 poems, I did manage 10, so not too sad. For 2025, for the writing, I did a fair amount better. Between Twice Bitten, Thrice Shy and the second space fantasy, I wrote 98,717 words, and I edited over 53,000. Now, while I didn't draft any short stories, I did write 16 poems. All in all, partial success. Rating, I'm giving myself 3 out of 5 stars. My second priority was querying and submitting and maybe publishing. The plan was to query 10 agents and submit 5 short stories or poems a quarter. Insert hysterical laughter here. Okay. Now that that's over, the reality is I queried 1 agent in 2024, 2 in 2025, and submitted to 1 small press. And I sent off 2 poems to the Spilled Ink Poetry Collection, which is my local open mic night, and I actually did get that published. It's in When You Hand a Poet a Microphone. There's an affiliate link below. In other words, I did put my work out there just enough that I can say I did something, but it was definitely nowhere near my goal. I'm going to give myself a 1 out of 5 stars on that one. So my third priority was revisions. The plan was I'd hoped to get my second space fantasy beta read in the summer of 2024 and revise it that fall, plus revise a short story and submit it to publishers. Reality, nope. Nuh-uh. I don't think I revised a single thing in 2024. Now, 2025, I edited about 53,000 words in the still in progress Twice Bitten, Thrice Shy, and I had to revise as I was writing the ending of the second space fantasy to the tune of about 23,000 words were edited out. So this goal was a wash utterly in 2024 and a rousing success in 2025. So, um, 0 stars for 2024 and 5 stars for 2025. So, my next priority was reading. Now, I thought that my binge reading had gotten out of control in 2023 because I read 244 books. Oh, sweet summer child. The plan was to read 100 books, with a book a month being physical. And then, after the ridiculousness of 2024, my one and only New Year's resolution for 2025 was to read fewer books than that. The reality is, I read 680 books in 2024 and 553 in 2025. And one of those books was physical. So clearly, I blew my goals out of the water both times, both by being over my target and cutting over 100 books when I was trying to read fewer books. So I'm giving myself 6 stars here out of 5. Next priority was my blogging, vlogging, and podcasting. Now, the plan when I ended 2023, I had not missed a weekly blog post since February of 2016. And I'd never missed a vlog post ever since June of 2017 when I started doing these videos. So I thought it was an easy win to have a weekly Thursday post and a podcast episode and a weekly live stream, skipping no more than one live stream per quarter. And the reality is nope. Clearly, I'm still here. So I still dabble, but while I have basically 10 years worth of content, I posted 11 times in 2024 and 6 times in 2025. Now, that said, the podcast had 16 episodes and 24 episodes released, partially due to me not nudging my sound engineer enough, because I do have those prepped. So despite everything in the last 2 years, my live stream did keep going strong, even if all I was doing was reading on them and snacking. It's a snack-fueled event, really. So I'm giving myself a partial win of 3 out of 5 stars. The podcast was still going out. The live stream was almost weekly. So next on my priority list were conventions and writing groups. The plan was to panel at 3 or more conventions, attend 6 or more open mic nights, 6 or more monthly writer meetings, and 3 NaNoWriMo events, plus staff Balticon. The reality is, both years I hit open mic night, it's called Spilled Ink for writers, 5 times, and I did panel at ScribbleCon, Balticon, Imaginarium, Capclave, and was a backup streamer for the virtual 100 Hours of Writing called Oh How, and I paneled for RavenCon in 2025 because they make you take a year off every 3 years. However, NaNoWriMo died outright, but I did make it to 3 write-ins and 1 November Challenge celebration party in 2024. In 2025, I attended 3 or 4 virtual panels, and I did make it to Arts Alive in 2024, where there was an open mic, and the Circle of Laureates in 2025 with poetry readings and poetry workshops. I did continue to staff Balticon. As I see there, I quit running their social media and publicity entirely, except for 4 days a year, Balticon Friday through Balticon Monday. Why? Because our publicity and social media staff is made up of the heads of the dealers group, registration, and programming when they're not being the convention chair. So I was a panelist and a host for a lot of panels and events. Let me try to run through these super quick. ScribbleCon 24 and 25, I gave my workshops Better Beta Reading and the Traditional Publishing Process. In Balticon 24, I was on New to Cons, Advice from Fans, paranormal romance, dealing with literary rejection, and I hosted First Timers and Friends and Improving Balticon, and I gave the Better Beta Reading workshop. At Imaginarium in 2024, I was on the panel for creating relatable LGBTQ plus characters in book and film, a discussion on writing software packages, and I gave my Better Beta Reading workshop. At CapClave in 2024, I was on the panels for an offline discussion of online events, blog this one time, local clubs, conventions and events, and the further adventures of Grignard the Barbarian, a tribute. And the panel, Who You Gonna Call? At RavenCon 2025, I was on the panels for Things I Hate as a Reader, Too Sued or Not Too Sued, about pseudonyms. I gave my Better Beta Reading workshop. I talked about old school monsters, embracing fear, and what is your comfort media? At Balticon 2025, I was on the panel for I learned about the Omegaverse so you don't have to. Streaming 101, we go live in 3. I'm going to kiss that corpse. Why we love paranormal romance, multiverses, and you and your evil twin. And I hosted First Timers and Friends and Improving Balticon, and I ran my Better Beta Reading workshop. At Imaginarium 2025, I was on the panel for What the Hell is Hope Punk? Fangs, Fates, and Forever, forming irresistible paranormal romance and modern subgenres. I hosted the Slush Fest, and I gave my Better Beta Reading workshop. At CapClave 2025, last one, y'all. Thanks for hanging in there. I did romance and sci-fi and fantasy. I paneled on common sci-fi fantasy tropes, writing through adversity, and diving into subgenres. So I think we can say I knocked the conventions part out of the park. Better yet, I got to meet some of you in person and hang out with you, and that's always awesome. So I'm giving myself 6 stars here. So, you want to hear some fun side stories? In 2024, Saku and I spent the first 3 hours of the road trip to Imaginarium in Kentucky, coming from Virginia, trapped just far enough behind a house on a trailer that we could see it. It blocked both lanes of Route 66 until it dead ended at Highway 81. And did the police escorts let everyone by? No. Instead, they continued for another 2 hours down 81 until they finally took the exit, like 205 or something. It was 3 long hours after the house came in sight that we were finally freed. Actual fun fact that amuses me more than it should is, despite the trip always taking over 9 hours, if you ignore the stops for gas, I have only 7 turns to get to Imaginarium in Kentucky from my home in Virginia. So next on my priorities were beta reading. The plan was to beta read 1 manuscript or short story and no more than 3 stories for others. The reality is I read nothing in 2024. And in 2025, I looked over 1 query and the first third of a friend's manuscript in 2025. But points off for never actually sending her the feedback. So all I can claim credit for was at least not being a beta reader. Yeah, enjoy that double negative. I'm giving myself a half a star on that. Bonus though, things I achieved outside of my goals. Patrick Hopkins and I launched my agent database on Patreon. Querying made easy. We put tons of online sources and agent research into one place to help you find the right agents to query. Anyway, in conclusion, burnout destroyed me for a while. End of 2023, Morgan thought she knew what binge reading looked like and what the lack of an executive function looked like. Still, when I look at the scope creep, I see the root cause of everything was overcommitting myself. My blog started off as a quick post, and I easily added recording it for YouTube, and that was okay. Then I started pedaling at multiple conventions a year and posting regularly on my socials to establish a platform. When I started running social media for Balticon, this time suck just grew. By 2023, I had quit the Balticon social media team, except those 4 days a year, but I'd decided to up my production quality at the urging of my friends. I started using like a teleprompter app and creating new infographics for each weekly post. Instead of just a blog post, I was also posting an author spotlight interview and a weekly roundup each week. With the implosion of Twitter, I'd migrated to the 3 replacement platforms, and I finally joined the world of short video social medias, including TikTok, posting videos multiple times a week in 2023. Now, each of those things by themselves was a small expenditure of time and effort. Added together, they were a full time job that wasn't paying me on top of my day job, friends, and family, and not writing novels. I'm aiming for more realistic expectations these days. A post when I have something to share, social media as it strikes me, and focusing more on my actual writing rather than my nebulous platform. However, as you can see, despite my dysfunction, I still made tons of progress in the last 2 years that I can be proud of. I read 1,233 books with an average of 275 pages. So it's not like they were little novellas. I wrote 178,141 words across 2 manuscripts, edited 76,632 words, composed 26 poems, attended 10 open mic nights, hit 5 different conventions, all but RavenCon. I hit twice. I ran 9 workshops, mostly the better beta reading one. I spoke on 29 panels, hosted 6 events, and held 3 readings solo. I may have fallen short on some things, but as I quote Les Brown, every retrospective, shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars.
And that's all for today. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button and share it with all your friends. It goes a long way towards helping people find me. And I'll be back again next Monday with more writing tips and writerly musings. Bye-bye.